Welcome, everybody, to the PDC's annual meeting 2022. I'm just thrilled that so many of you have signed up today. We have an amazing turnout and we're not even serving lunch today. So you're really diehard Democrats. Your support for democratic values and democratic candidates has made us the largest Democratic club on the Peninsula, and we strive to continue as the largest. We are also the oldest club. In case you don't know, I am Lori Holzberg, the current president of the PDC, and I'm truly honored to be on the ballot again for the upcoming year as president. It has been an honor and a joy to serve all of you and to work with our talented and amazing board. Today is our annual meeting, and we have a lot to cover, which includes our election of our new executive board, the welcoming of new members. Can you put up the agenda? Thank you. It includes our election of our new executive board, the welcoming of new board members, heartfelt goodbyes and thank yous to outgoing board members. We also have lots of several local, state, and national elected officials on our program for today. And it would be remiss for me not to mention the situation in Ukraine, which I know is in the forefront of all of our minds today. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And we all wish the best for the people of Ukraine who are struggling and showing how democracy is supposed to work. Well, with that on our minds, let's get started. First of all, housekeeping. I'm going to ask you to please put any questions or comments in the Q&A. We're not using the chat today. And also we will be sending out a link to all of the slides after the meeting today. So you don't have to take notes, but all the information that you need will be on the slide. So we will send that out either later today or tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, now it is my great honor to welcome our first speaker, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who needs no introduction to any of us, but we owe her lots and lots of thank yous for her years of service and her dedication to her constituents. Currently, she serves as chair of the Health Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce Committee and is the first woman ever to have served in this position in the history of the US. I have personally known Anna since she was on the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors when I was a brand new dietitian, not a young dietitian, but new dietitian. And now, many years later, and I won't say how many years, my granddaughter is working on her student advisory board. So it is a great honor for me to welcome our dear friend, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. And remember to put your questions in the Q&A. We will take a few questions after Congresswoman's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, for your wonderful introduction. It's so great to be with all of you today, the PDC's annual meeting. Thank you, Lori, for your leadership, for that of the executive board, all of the officers, the PDC. I'm so proud to be a member of the PDC, participated in so many events over the years. You are the largest and the oldest club, and I think really singularly the most vital. There isn't anything that the PDC has taken on over the years where there hasn't been a resounding success. So bravo to each one of you. And I think that it's so important to underscore that your organization, other democratic organizations are so vitally necessary today in terms of our very democracy. So let me just say a few words about the situation in Ukraine. First of all, I think the bravery, the courage of the Ukrainian people, I think they are really redefining what the word resistance means. I also want to underscore something, and it's not really always said in the reporting in this 24-hour cycle that we have of reporting, that it is the United States of America and the leadership of President Biden that is making the difference. he has been working, and his team, his entire cabinet, have been working with our allies around the clock for months. Earlier this last week, members of the House had a full briefing by the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of State, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to walk through everything that is being done and to describe what these sanctions are. They are broad, they are deep. We all worry that obviously that the sanctions are moving on one track, the military is moving on another. But make no mistake, it has been American leadership that has brought all of this about, to bring our allies together to agree that they too would participate in these sanctions. If it's only the United States and one or two other countries, they cannot be effective. And so we have a great source of pride in the president, what his administration is doing, what they continue doing. Now, I leave very early tomorrow morning for DC. It's going to be a full week. Tuesday evening is State of the Union. But what Congress will also be taking up is additional aid to the Ukraine. That includes military material as well as humanitarian aid. And the humanitarian aid, together again with our allies, to the countries that the Ukrainians are fleeing to. So anything that's taking place in our local communities, as Laurie said in her synagogue, she mentioned earlier before we began that the mayor of Palo Alto, Pat Burt, I think he's mayor this year, is also launching something. I have no doubt that we will all support these efforts in some way, shape, or form. So I think that, let me just add something to this effort. Europe has experienced peace for 80 years. For 80 years. NATO has never been so strong and committed as it is today. That's American leadership. What is the most menacing to Mr. Putin is that he has a democracy next door. So we have to, I think that this is beyond Ukraine. I think this is all about the West. And everything that we do as a nation, together with our allies, our democratic allies, is absolutely essential. If we don't stand up today, then when? But we also, my beautiful friends, we need to stand up for our democracy here at home as well. We saw how close we came to losing it on January 6th. And the attempts of the Republicans and Republican legislators across the country, we see in broad daylight what they are doing. They are the kings of suppressing the vote. It's shameful. And they're doing it all over again. But they've leapfrogged into an area that I never ever thought we would experience in our country. And that is the ability to manipulate votes once they have been cast. If that stands, I don't want to use the words, our democracy is gone, but everyone ponder it. So everything that the PDC does in this upcoming season, and it is it's a gubernatorial and midterm election, notorious for low turnout. I think the PDC and the rest of all of our democratic organizations can turn that around. We must turn that around in our region. I've always said, when pals say, well, what are we going to do about this over here? What are we going to do about that over there? I always say, you know what? We have to take care of our own backyard first. And that is to make sure that our democracy is broadened and deepened, because we not only protect the vote, but we turn the vote out. I have every confidence that we can do it. You know that you have me as your fullest partner. I will do everything that is humanly possible to fulfill and make real what I just described. So you have my unswerving friendship, commitment, but you always have my lasting gratitude. If there's anyone that knows firsthand the effectiveness and the deep and broad commitment of the PDC, Anna knows, and Anna is forever grateful to you. So we have our work cut out for us, friends. But you know what? We are more than accustomed to the job that needs to be done. And when I turn the computer on and I see Emmy and the rest of you, we may have lost our dear friends to they've transitioned to heaven, I believe. Jackman, Jim Thurber, they're with us. They're with us. And we can't let them down. We can't let them down. And we won't. And we won't. So I'm prepared to answer any questions that you may have. I probably have gone over my time. I apologize for that. But these are challenging times. But I have also an unswerving commitment in the decency, the goodness of the American people. And we're going to meet the challenges that are before us.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Your words were very sobering and very meaningful. We have a question from Peter Landsberger, and I will just read it. Do you have any information you can discuss regarding who, if anyone, is leaning on India, Israel, and China to pressure the Russians to back off, and other similarly Russia-friendly nations?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important to note that that Putin is becoming isolated. Who are his friends? Kim Jong-un and the president of China. Tom Friedman, if you haven't read his piece, it's powerful. He ends it by saying he hopes that Putin enjoys Korean and Chinese food. So, the free world, the democratic world, is all on one side. Now, I know that the speaker traveled to the Munich conference, and world leadership was there. That congressional delegation also traveled to Israel. So I know when we have our caucus meeting this week that they'll give a report. So I don't know the details of that. But I don't know of any other countries that are, they may be lukewarm. I don't know, Lori, that or Peter. I can't. I just don't know. But I think that read Tom Friedman's piece. It's highly instructive. Putin's. You know what he has? He has nuclear weapons. That's an exclusive club in this world. But he also has an economy that's smaller than the size of Texas. So to go after his central banking system, to tighten the noose, to squeeze his economy, he's a pariah now in the view of the global community. And of course, he's diplomatically isolated as well. So, but we have to keep the pedal to the metal, because this is an enormous threat that cannot stand. It's a threat to the democratic systems in our world, but also our understanding of world order since the end of World War II.
Absolutely. Thank you once again. Your words were unbelievable, and we're so grateful that you represent us in Congress. We're
Oh,
the
thank you,
lucky
dear
ones.
lawyer.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful to have all of you as my friend. Some of the friendships, some of the deepest friendships are embedded in the PDC for me. So thank you for who you are, what you are, the work that you do, and shoulder to shoulder, we're going to make a difference. We're going to be the most effective area in the entire state of California. How's that?
Yes, we are. And you have given
Okay.
us our marching orders.
Yes.
So we're
And
going
you know
right
what?
ahead.
We have to squeeze this in, Lori. The beginning of March begins National Women's History Month, and how
Yes.
proud we all are of the president's nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She spoke so magnificently when standing next to the president. I had warm tears coming down my face because this is all of us need to appreciate the deep history of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
America
Absolutely.
again making history.
Absolutely.
So we need to celebrate that. Thank you, everybody. Love
Thank,
you all.
thank you so much.
Stay healthy.
Now we're going to move ahead to the business part of our program today. And I would like to thank our outgoing members, and I will do that individually. Leora Tanwatko, she served for 2 years as president and had 2 babies while in office. She worked full time, and I can't even fathom how she did it. But I did promise you I wouldn't get pregnant when I was president. She was a role model for us all, and I don't know how she pulled it off. Thank you, Leora, for your devotion to the PDC. And Zach actually told me he does not want you to run again for president. So we have that. Lisa Gauthier, many thanks to you for all your help and your years of service and dedication to the PDC. Emily Ramos, I will always be eternally grateful to you for stepping in to do our tech work for the PDC, which included redesigning our website and helping produce all of our Zoom programming for the last couple of years. Thank you so much. Stephanie Grossman, when we say your name, we remember the hundreds of fundraisers and meet and greets that you have held in your beautiful home. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Ray Mueller, thank you so much for all your help with me on the no recall efforts in Menlo Park. We manned the table on the other side of the farmers market, whereas the recall people were invading the farmers market. Ray and I were sitting politely on the other side of the street, encouraging everybody to vote no. And good luck to you on your run for Board of Supervisors in San Mateo County. Carol Kuiper, many, many thanks to you for your years as a meticulous membership secretary for our club. You never missed a beat with welcoming new members, with renewal efforts, and with setting up registration for all our meetings. We will definitely miss you on the board. And even though they are not going off the board, I would like to thank goodness they're not going off the board. I would like to thank Shali Serke, our program director, for a hugely successful picnic and for the No Recall Zoom program featuring Governor Newsom himself from a fire truck near the Dixie Fire. I would also like to give a huge, huge shout out to Kristen Johnson for her beautiful newsletters. Each one is memorable. And we also have a new volunteer who has graciously taken over our tech duties, Jonathan Hull. And I am always forever grateful for anybody who can do the tech work. Okay, I would now like to introduce our slate for officers for this year. Myself, Vice President Shali for Vice President of Programming, Ron Friedenthal, Vice President for Membership, Claire Noonan for our Secretary, and Zach and Max Ross surrounding Leora. Leora's not running, but Zach and Max are running again for treasurer, and they will be training Alex Kobayashi, who will be the treasurer in 2023. At this time, I would also like to introduce our new members, Anne Bosange, Michael Dunham, Eric Kaiser of the PYD, and Jonathan Hull, again, who is our wonderful tech consultant. And the following individuals will continue to serve on the board: Stacy Ashland, Chelsea Bonini, Herb Angstrom, Sarah Fields, Megan Fraley, Kristen Johnson, Carl Kramer, Raven Malone, Diane Rolfe. And we want, by the way, I'm going to stop here. Diane had surgery this week, and we all wish her a quick healing process. Pam Salvatierra with the Democratic Volunteer Center, Olivette Smith, Kavita Tonka, and our beloved Emmy Thurber. So now all of you get to vote, and you can participate directly. A poll will appear on your screen, and you get to vote to support the slate of officers as proposed. So as soon as you finish voting, I will declare whether you approve or don't approve of the current slate. So be sure to check your screens and click yes, no, or abstain. I will announce the results as soon as they come in.
Excuse me, Madam President, we're up to 51 out of 59 participating. Shall we close the voting?
Sure. Okay, we have 94% of those who voted yes and 6% abstained. So we now have approved the current slate of officers. So welcome, new officers. Thank you so much. And thank you all for doing your civic duty and voting for PDC officers. Okay, moving right along. Next up on the agenda, we're going to have an update from the Peninsula Young Democrat President, Aaron Kaiser. And the PYD, Peninsula Young Democrats, are an affiliate of the PDC, and we want to support and encourage their participation in our events and our participation in their events. So I would like to now welcome PYD President Aaron Kaiser. Again, put your questions in the Q&A. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Lori, and congratulations to the new board members. I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and this will be my first term on the board. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aaron Kaiser. I'm the president of the Peninsula Young Democrats. And I'm going to endeavor to keep this really brief, just give you a little update on what we did last year and what we're looking forward to this year. And primarily, I'm going to use a couple of minutes to show you some really cute pictures of what we did in this last year. This has been an interesting year to become president. I became president in January of 2021 when we were smack dab in the middle of COVID. We started off the year firmly in Zoom meetings and then switched over into meetings in person. The pictures on the screen right now are some of our first meetings where we did one indoor and everybody was all masked up. We did like a happy hour outside. And this is when I was first elected in our January meeting when we were firmly on Zoom. So this last year has been really great, like being able to transition to meeting in person again, which we hadn't been able to do at all basically in 2020. We had our 3rd annual Flag Day party, which is something that we started doing a few years ago. And it's a fundraiser where we get a lot of young people together and we encourage them to wear ridiculous, overly patriotic flag paraphernalia. And it's a really fun party. And we ask our local electeds and local leaders in our community to support Young Democrats with a monetary contribution so that we can do things like go to convention or get pizza for our meetings. So it's a really great opportunity for us. But another thing that I have wanted to do, like in my tenure as president, was get us more involved locally or beyond locally in the party. So one thing that I was really focused on is connecting with other Young Democrat chapters. This year we had an event as photographed with the San Francisco Young Democrats and the East Bay Young Democrats, where we had a panel of young women electeds who told their story about how to become an elected official and how they were able to get involved in their local politics. And they gave a lot of advice and they talked about their experiences as young women of color getting involved in the party and getting involved in local politics. And then as we ended the year, we got back towards COVID coming back up again. We had our holiday party where everybody was like largely masked up. We said goodbye to some of our members who aged out because in the Young Dems, you age out after age 35. And that is the photo with the little certificates. And then we started this year off once again back on Zoom because of the Omicron coming up. And so I know this is something that we've all had to deal with, is figuring out when to have meetings in person and when to be masked up and when to be outside and how to deal with COVID. And I think that that's something that we're all learning to do. I am happy that the Young Dems have largely been able to do it well. And as we move forward, this was our January 2022 meeting where our new executive board was elected. And we are now going into 2022, which I think we all know is going to be a very busy year here on the Peninsula with just a bunch of elections coming up. And we started our process of our endorsement processes yesterday, actually, when we had interviews with the CD15 congressional candidates, and we actually endorsed Kevin Mullen for that seat just yesterday. And as the year goes on, we're going to be taking on more races, and as Congresswoman Eshoo said, getting involved and turning out voters and making sure that we don't let our democracy die. So I'm really proud of the work that the Young Democrats have done thus far, and I'm really looking forward to this year and getting to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. I have one question for you, and that is, are there any PYD events coming up next month?
Yes, there are. Next month, we will be looking at the AD21 assembly race. So we're working on getting all of the details for that, but tentatively we're planning it for March 31st, and we'll have a meeting with all of the candidates for that race.
Great. And there's one more question. What are the top 2 issues for the Young Democrats?
That's a really good question. Obviously there are a lot of issues that affect young people. I would say here on the Peninsula, the #1 tip-top issue is the lack of housing, and especially affordable housing for young people who are trying to start their lives. A lot of our members are either are living at home with their parents, even though they're young professionals, because the cost of housing on the peninsula is so high. I would say, aside from that, like something that we all care very deeply about is climate change and how we're going to address that in a meaningful way in the future.
Thank you so much, Erin. And the PDC is here to support you, and we're all here for the same goal. Let's elect good Democrats.
That's right.
To
Thank
serve
you.
our country. Thank you so much for being here and for being on our board. And we hope we can help you out as the best we can. Thank you. Okay, now we have a word from California Senator Alex Padilla, who graciously has sent us a video to share with all of you. I actually was very lucky to have had contact with Senator Padilla on several nutrition policy issues when he was in the state Senate. He also was extremely progressive and thoughtful on nutrition policy. Then, as we all know, when he was Secretary of State, he blew us away with how well he organized the office and digitized the whole voting process. So now here are a few words from Senator Padilla. The sound isn't on. The sound is not on the video.
In the Bay Area.
Okay.
Hello, Peninsula Democrats. It's great to be with you today. I want to thank you, Lori, for the invitation to say a few words, and thank you for your leadership in the Bay Area. I want to start by taking a moment to thank all of you for your tireless work on behalf of California Democrats in previous cycles. Your activism is a crucial component of the progress that we achieve, both in the Bay Area and throughout the state. And with our majorities in Congress on the line in the upcoming midterm elections, and with so many important races happening here in California, we each need to do our part to turn out the vote in 2022. Winning seats will come down to grassroots leaders like you, who put in the work now, not just 2 weeks before the election. We need you to help make important inroads through voter registration drives, which I know you already sponsor, and through the activism that we know drives election outcomes. That means engaging with voters, both on the phones and online, about everything that's at stake for working families. Access to affordable childcare, healthcare, housing, bold investments to fight climate change, immigration reform, an issue that's personal for me as the proud son of immigrant parents, and the most important pillar of our democracy, our fundamental right to vote. We know voting reforms work. The year I was first elected California Secretary of State, we saw the lowest voter turnout election since World War II. But by 2020, California had its highest turnout and registration in state history. We accomplished that together through voter education, automatic voter registration, expanded vote by mail, same-day voter registration, pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds, in-person early voting, and the restoration of voting rights for the formerly incarcerated. Now, I joined the Senate a year ago, ready to fight to advance these reforms at the federal level. And I worked hard to champion voting rights legislation throughout the year. So I'm just as disappointed as you are that it's still not done. But I'm not going to give up. As I fight in the Senate to ensure that we can find another path for voting rights, I hope that I can count on your support to ensure that I can return to serve another full term. I'm grateful to count on your efforts here on the ground to make sure that we have the support and the resources that we need to win. Our progress on these issues wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you for helping move our country forward. Let's keep up the fight.
Thank you so much, Senator Padilla, for your inspiring words. You are definitely a star in the Senate, and we're lucky to have you. I also wanted to say right now, I would like to welcome all of the elected officials who have tuned into our meeting today. I recognized Ellen Kamei, Jen Wollison, Greg Tanaka, and Ellen Wheeler. And if there's anybody I have missed, please put your name in the Q&A so I can acknowledge you later on in the program. Okay, now it is time for us to honor our own. We have 2 Life Achievement Awards to give today. Not only do we have exceptional elected officials in the Bay Area and California, we have extraordinary volunteers within our very own PDC. This year, we're going to present lifetime awards to 2 of our longtime members who have given their all to promoting democratic values in our community and way beyond our community. The honorees were not informed ahead of time, but I will announce them now, and you can see one on the screen: Carol Kuiper and Stephanie Grossman. Carol and Stephanie, we'd like to bring you on the screen along with Emmy, who's going to present the awards to you. So you are going to be given an invitation to become a panelist while you're receiving the award. So please acknowledge your invitation, and we will put you on the screen with Emmy. So Emmy, why don't you take it away to present the awards to Carol and Stephanie.
Emmy, you're muted.
So here I go again. It's a great pleasure for me to present special commendations to 2 longtime PDC board members who are retiring today. They're also my friends, and that's a great pleasure too. The 2 members are Carol Kuiper and Stephanie Grossman. I'm sure most of you know both of these board members, as they have been so active. In pre-COVID times, Carol would be here at the annual meeting, checking people in, making sure everything was running smoothly. She'd probably be recruiting new members as well. And perhaps the day before, Stephanie might have hosted 150 people who had gathered at her beautiful home in Palo Alto to hear Congressman Eric Swalwell, and where she raised maybe over $15,000 to keep our headquarters open. So now I'm just going to say a little bit about each of the awardees. First, Carol. She's been a doer and an activist all her life. Besides raising a family, she was an outstanding teacher who taught English and journalism at Gunn High School. She was an elected member of the Los Altos School Board. Additional jobs, she's been president of the Retiree Teachers Association, secretary and program VP for Mountain View Los Altos League of Women Voters. On the PDC board, she's done an outstanding job as both secretary and then later membership chair. Here is what's inscribed on her award. The Peninsula Democratic Coalition presents its Lifetime Achievement Award to Carol Kuiper, who epitomizes service above self and who has worked tirelessly as membership chair to make the PDC one of the largest and most effective clubs in California. Stephanie, he's well known to all of you, I'm sure. Many of you have been in her lovely art-filled home in Palo Alto. Steph began her political career when her husband ran for the state legislature in Minnesota. She carried on her activism in New England, where she organized against the Vietnam War. When she moved to California, she started and ran a business, raised her daughters, and became one of the most admired hostesses on the peninsula. She's raised many, many dollars for candidates and organizations like the PDC and the DVC headquarters. This is what is inscribed on Steph's award. The Peninsula Democratic Coalition presents its Lifetime Achievement Award to Stephanie Grossman, who has generously opened her home for countless fundraisers and candidate forums, and has helped make the PDC one of the most effective fundraising clubs in California. Both awardees will be given inscribed plaques. I wish I had them here to show because they're very, very beautiful. And I'm sure everyone listening will join me in giving thanks to Steph and to Carol, and a good Democratic cheer for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmy, for your very personal words about our honorees. And thank you, beloved honorees, Carol and Stephanie, for all your passion and hard work over these difficult years in helping to preserve our democracy. We owe a lot of gratitude to both of you. You are superstars. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Well, I left out quite a few elected officials, so I'm going to I'm going to speak to them right now. Peter Landsberger, Foothill De Anza trustee, Laura Palmer Lohan, San Carlos City Council, and candidate for San Mateo County Supervisor, Margaret Abicoga, Mountain View, Julia Miller, El Camino Healthcare District Chair, Sally Meadows, Vice Mayor, Los Altos, Devin Conley, Mountain View Wisman School District. Thank you all elected officials for all that you do above and beyond what most people are doing. You are really representing us well, and thank you for attending this meeting. Well, today we are honored to have 3 speakers with us, local elected officials, one in the State Assembly, one in Santa Clara County Supervisor, and San Mateo County Democratic Party Chair. We are so blessed on the Peninsula to have so many dedicated and effective local elected officials who have really made a difference for our life on the Peninsula. Let me ask, our first speaker is going to be Evan Lowe. I'm assuming that he's here, unless I hear otherwise.
Yes.
You're here. Okay, great. Thanks for coming, Assembly Member. So let me do a quick introduction. At the age of 31, Evan Lowe was the youngest Asian American ever to be elected in the California State Legislature. In 2010, as mayor of Campbell, he made history as the youngest openly LGBTQ+ mayor in the country. His youth certainly has not hindered him in advancing a lot of excellent progressive legislation, which includes increased government transparency, advanced equality, reforming the criminal justice system, and legislation to increase job growth and help small businesses. Growing up in Silicon Valley, he has always understood the needs of his constituency. Let us welcome Assembly Member Evan Lowe, and remember to put your questions in the Q&A. Welcome.
Lori, thank you very much. And hello to everyone at PDC. I see my dear friend, Emmy. I miss seeing you in person. So looking forward to seeing you and so many others very much in the near future. As many of you may be familiar with, I'm actually in downtown Sunnyvale right now, about to have another meeting at the Bean Scene with the new council member, Tony Spitaleri, who was just appointed. As many of you may know, redistricting has occurred, to which I'll have the opportunity to earn the trust and respect and vote for residents living in Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, Cupertino, and San Jose. But very briefly, I just want to thank each and every one of you for all the work that you do. Sometimes we take things for granted a bit. Living in California, and what was so difficult for so many of us, specifically in the LGBT community, just this week in the state of Texas, the Texas governor instructed the attorney general to pursue criminal intent with respect to individuals seeking gender affirming care to qualify it as child abuse. Think about that again, what we're talking about. In the state of Texas, just this week, the governor and the attorney general and the elected establishment is going to go after loving parents and families, qualifying gender affirming care as child abuse. Now, this is completely counter to the values we have in California. And while I mentioned this, why I mentioned this specifically is I also serve as chair of the California LGBT Legislative Caucus, in which we think here in California, we might have it all, full, complete protections. But there are so many others who are in deep pain or in suffering and now being persecuted for a wide variety of different things, of just being themselves, to being authentic, and for pursuing love. And I share this because we have much work to do ahead, not only just to help organize us here in the state of California and in the Bay Area and in the Peninsula, but we have much work to do to also be a beacon of hope for those in other places who might not have the opportunity to have public officials who care deeply about their regard of family members and their human existence. So let's reaffirm our commitment to making sure that we're doing all that we can in here in California, and also partner with other organizations who are also equally doing space in other states as well to help elect Democrats in Texas and frankly other places as well too. Finally, let me just also highlight two pieces of legislation that I'm very proud of, and I hope that you will also get behind as well. One is Election Day holiday in the state of California. Did you know that California, we do not have Election Day as a holiday? When in fact 17 other states in the nation has qualified the election day as a holiday. And so we, of course, we want to remove as many barriers as possible. That's why in California, we've had prepaid postage, we've had absentee ballots go out, number of days to vote, but we can continue on the progress to be made to remove as much barriers as possible to participation. And the last piece of legislation that I also wanted to highlight was an unfortunate part of the public process that came about with respect to an incident that happened in Los Gatos, in which the mayor and town council were harassed and subjugated to significant disruptions and harassment at the mayor's house, Rio Seox's home. And so as a response to that, Senator Cortez and I have introduced a piece of legislation, SB 1100, to update and modernize our Brown Act laws for public meetings to ensure that we update that, which hasn't been updated in close to 50 years, but to clearly define willful disruptive meetings. So we've seen this in school boards and city councils throughout the entire state, in which protesters have disrupted and bullied public officials by terrorizing them at their homes and their residences, as well as in public places of gathering, making it unsafe for public discourse and dialogue for a democracy. So I hope you'll think about opportunities to help support that. And I make myself readily available for anything that you possibly need to help strengthen as we head into this next election. But thank you very much for having me and spending your valuable time on this Sunday.
Do you have time for one question, Assembly Member?
Sure.
Okay, we have a question from Claude Ezrin. He wants to know your position on AB 1400, which is a single payer healthcare for California.
Sure. On single payer, we have an opportunity to reform the system, which is we can all acknowledge that there are significant deficiencies in our healthcare system. And part of the job, whether or not people like it or not, is that of to introduce legislation to tackle significant problems. That's why we run for the state legislature, because we find an opportunity to change the current status quo, and we want to make change. And that is part of the democratic process. I similarly have introduced legislation on universal basic income, which would have given every Californian $1,000 a month. Part of the pushback on that was, well, what is the cost of that? And my response was, let's talk about costs, but my proposal is to help tackle the issue of poverty. With respect to single payer, this is helping to address the issue of the broken system. And so let's have that conversation. But without a single payer piece of legislation, we aren't able to have a piece of legislation to be responsive to. So I'll continue to be supportive of efforts for us to tackle issues and concerns with respect to how we can reform the healthcare system to make it as equitable as possible.
Thank you. And thank you for being here, for your inspiring words and your hard work on behalf of your district in Santa Clara County. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, I'd like to introduce Santa Clara County Supervisor Susan Ellenberg. She represents more than 400,000 residents in diverse areas in Santa Clara County and now serves as Vice President of the Board of Supervisors, as well as Chair of the county's Public Safety and Justice Committee and Vice Chair of the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee. Let's welcome Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thank you so much, Lori, for having me today. And thank you all for your interest in what's happening south of your border. I'm delighted that I recognize so many names and so many colleagues on this call, which is really demonstrative of the fact that we work across counties, across regions, and up and down the state. And I want to just thank as well Assemblymember Lowe and Congresswoman Ashu for the tremendous work that they do on their scales on behalf of our community. What I'd like to do in my few moments today is share a bit of a brag about some work that's been happening in Santa Clara County, and then a few of my own initiatives. So we've clearly, as has San Mateo County and the rest of the state, spent the last couple of years immersed in meeting all of the needs that the pandemic truly has inflicted on us. We have spent so much time on delivering COVID-related services, whether it's been testing, vaccinations, fee relief, hero pay, support for small businesses and CBOs, broad-ranging school supports, including digital and food. We have spent upwards of $1 billion, probably another $500 million by the time this is all done. And our county has the highest vaccination rate of any large city in the entire country, one of the lowest death rates, and overall have just borne this once in a lifetime pandemic in about as strong a fashion as one might expect a government to do. Having said that, we also lost more than 2,000 residents, and that is obviously 2,000 plus too many. It is really tragic that so many of our community members did succumb to COVID, and I'm grateful every day that the number wasn't exponentially larger than that. So that is my point of pride about the work that Santa Clara County has done over the past couple of years. While we are still continuing, of course, to provide many COVID-related services, we're also beginning to really focus on what recovery looks like and what does that look like for our business community, for our CBOs, and for our workforce at large. So let me share with you 3 initiatives that my office is working on, of course, in partnership with my colleagues. It's been really gratifying to have their support on issues that are really important to me. The first is a children's roadmap to recovery. Supervisor Chavez partnered with me to introduce this referral to our colleagues at the last board meeting. It was approved unanimously, and it's going to focus on 3 areas. And the 3 areas were determined through a lot of research and conversations about what kids and families need to move beyond the repercussions of the pandemic. And the first is to meet the special needs of children who lost a parent or primary caregiver to COVID during the pandemic. We know that the impacts of that trauma will be far-reaching. We can identify those children, and we will work on an individual level to make sure that we are discovering what their needs are and connecting them to supports and services, and making sure that they have in an awful situation, the best opportunity for positive, strong recovery. The second piece of that referral is working with our school districts to expand the presence of wellness centers. If some of you know more about my work, I've been working for several years, since before the pandemic, to increase access to mental and behavioral health services at all of our schools. Right now, we're partnering with about half of the school districts. We need to be in every school. And the opportunity to add some wellness centers is another piece of that. The third element is workforce development. When we look at the industries where most of the job losses were, they were for the most part, they were in lower paid blue collar and working class jobs. They were largely also in the childcare industry, and at higher income levels, the workers who left the workforce were 3 times, they were women 3 times more often than they were men. So moms, women, parents, caregivers have been dramatically impacted, and we're looking at ways to get people into the workforce so that we can meet the needs of childcare. This was a crisis prior to the pandemic, but it has really been exacerbated. So we're going to work with colleges and universities to look at how we can help to stimulate and encourage workforce development, particularly in the childcare area, but in a number as well. So that Children's Roadmap to Recovery is the first of 3. The second is working to build out a true continuum of care for mental illness and substance use disorder across the county. That is a 2-hour subject in itself. In fact, our board is set to have a comprehensive workshop on this tomorrow night, but we absolutely need to get behavioral health right. We cannot underserve people. We cannot say, well, we have this much money, so we'll do this program. We need to understand what a fully functioning, fully serving mental health service system looks like, and then work to get there. So that's the second. And the third is that I'm in the process right now of creating a work group that's going to develop and expand alternatives to incarceration over the next year, with the goal of presenting to the Board of Supervisors some implementable programs and recommendations about a year from now. So those are the things that are going on in my county and in my office, and I would be delighted to answer questions if you've got any. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Supervisor Ellenberg. I have a thank you from Peter Landsberger for partnering with Supervisor Chavez to move the county towards developing a publicly operated broadband network and addressing the digital divide. That is huge.
Yes.
I hope we can do that in San Mateo County as well.
Thanks, Peter. I'm excited about that work.
Yeah, that you should be. That's great. And Diane Rolfe has a question. How can we promote and pass non-incarceration justice policies for Santa Clara County?
So Diane, thank you. I love that question. And it's nice to hear your voice, to hear your name come up. What we have to do is be really clear about what counties influence and what is under the direct rule of the district attorney and the court and state laws. And while county supervisors specifically can't make the determination as to who remains in custody and who doesn't, what we can and must be doing is creating alternatives and options for people, whether it's mental health facilities, work release programs, or simply community release with support. We have to have those options available so that that courts and the district attorney can say, yes, you can go to this. Right now, if I focus on the mental health piece for just a second, we have dozens of people in custody in the county with serious mental illnesses whom judges have already said they don't belong in custody. They need to be in treatment centers. They're languishing, and in our particular jail, often being harmed. They're languishing in custody because those beds are not available. So that's part of what I'm talking about with the continuum of care. And if you look at aside from the mental health issue, our population of incarcerated folks has been declining for years without a corresponding increase in rates of crime. And during the pandemic, for public health reasons, when we had to reduce further, we did. Again, without corresponding increases in crime. I want to use those lessons. I'm not interested in eliminating accountability for harm, and I'm certainly not interested in having people move freely about our community that pose a serious risk of harm. But for so many of the people that are arrested and arraigned, they wait and wait in custody for their cases to be heard when there is no justifiable reason that they shouldn't be back in their communities. getting support, the things that we talk about doing at reentry, we really ought to be doing from the moment of arrest, because most of these folks are coming back into our community, whether it's pre or post sentencing, and it's in all of our interest to make sure that they have options for better support and better outcomes and better productivity than our system allows for now.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Supervisor, for your hard work on behalf of Santa Clara County.
Thank you all very, very much. Enjoy the day, and thank you for your activism and civic engagement. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, I forgot to mention one person who, another elected official, Patrick Ahrens on the Foothill De Anza School Board. Welcome, Patrick. And now I would like to introduce Karen Mackey, who is the chair of the San Mateo County Democratic Party. And we're going to hear what's happening in San Mateo County, which, as you know, I live in San Mateo County, so I'm very partial to what goes on in this county. And she's been active in the Democratic Party in San Mateo for over 10 years. She and I actually met as members of San Mateo County Democracy for America, which formed in 2004 with Howard Dean's candidacy for president. And we also served as ADEM delegates together at the same time. So, and in addition to her Democratic work, Karen has been very active with the Sierra Club for more than 20 years. So I'd like to welcome Karen, and let's hear what's happening and what is troubling in San Mateo County. Welcome, Karen.
So Lori, thank you so much for asking me to come and talk and for your introduction. So I want to talk about the election work that we're doing in San Mateo County, and I'm hoping that some of you will join us. So could we go to the next slide, please? So California Democratic Party, last year in 2020, they really partnered with San Mateo County Democratic Party, but this year they're not doing that with us or anyone else. And what they're doing is providing tools, they're providing resources and training and staff support, but they're really leaving it up to the individual county parties to come up with election work. And so what San Mateo Dems are doing is we're offering election work both in San Mateo County for local officials, and also we're going to do some work to try to hold the House and hold the Senate, and also even try to support some governors, and that's in Nevada and Arizona. So we are part of a coalition called Bay Area Coalition, which has about 9 different entities. One is Sister District, Swing Left, San Mateo County Latin Dems, also the Democratic Volunteer Center, they just joined us, as well as, and we also have Contra Costa and San Mateo County Central Committees, and I think San Francisco also just joined us. So this coalition has, we have about 30,000 volunteers that volunteer with one of the different entities and that will come and work with us. And there's a steering committee of about 5 people, which covers North Bay, San Francisco, the Peninsula, and the East Bay. And Rudy Espinoza Murray, who is in San Mateo County, he represents us on that. You can see our little, the logos of the various groups down here at the bottom. So can you go to the next slide, please? So within our campaign, there's really 2 parts of it. One part of it is the inside San Mateo County part, and that's led by the San Mateo Democratic Party's Voter Registration Committee. And that group will register voters and also support local candidates. And then we have the BAC effort, which is outside San Mateo County, and we're working to elect somebody in Congressional District 13, Congressional District 22, those are both in the Central Valley, within driving distance. And then we're also working on Arizona and Nevada on the US Senate races and the gubernatorial race. let's see. And so we're going to be hiring Rudy to work part-time for us from May 15th to 11/15 to try to coordinate these efforts between these different campaigns and make things run smoothly. He worked for us in 2020 in the presidential election. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I'm a big person for graphs. I don't know, I like to see things visually. And so I made this graph for you to try to make it simple as I could. So the activities we're going to do is phone banks and canvassing and postcards. And within San Mateo County, we're going to be doing phone banks and canvassing. And in Central Valley and CD District 13 and 22, BAC that we work with will be doing phone banks, canvassing, and postcards. And then we'll be doing phone banks into Arizona and Nevada. So I'm hoping that some of you will want to work with us doing these activities. Can we go to the next slide, please? And so we will be having phone banks, at least initially, every Wednesday night, and it's going to happen this Wednesday night that comes. You can sign up by, putting this URL in your browser. And we also will be having a voter contact training on March 19th. So you can sign up there with that URL there, and you can also contact Rudy if you have any additional questions besides this. So I'd love it if people could participate and help us with this. It's really important, as Congresswoman Escher said. Also, we have a luncheon on March 4th in San Mateo at the Refuge. It's a luncheon that's happening right as the California Democratic Convention happens. In association with that, it would be wonderful if some of you would like to attend that. You can sign up at smcdems.org on our homepage. Tickets are $40, and you could also, of course, donate some more if you wanted. I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Karen. At this point, we don't have any questions, but thank you for your work, and I hope that people will sign up to phone bank or write postcards. And I'm curious to know why you're not doing postcards for Arizona and Nevada.
So the postcard effort is it's coordinated with the visits. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that there's a whole stream of activities. Starts with writing postcards saying that somebody will be coming to your area, and then there'll be a phone call saying the same thing, and then there will be actually doing canvassing in the area.
Okay.
And knocking on doors and leaving flyers and leaving other things. And so since we aren't traveling to Arizona and Nevada, that's why we're not doing phone postcards.
Okay. Well, good. I hope that this is one way that we can all get active. And as you know, we're active with the Democratic Volunteer Center. So I'm sure we are all going to be working together this year to get a lot of the vote out.
Right. And they are working with us also. So
right. I know. I noticed that. So we're all one. We're all one on the peninsula, which is great. And thank you for your hard work and for upholding all the democratic values. Okay.
Thank you.
Next on our program chair, Shali, is going to tell us about some upcoming programs for our club. Welcome, Shali.
Thanks, Lori, and hello, everyone. So thank you for coming out this Sunday afternoon. We have some great programs in development, including a candidate forum later this year and an examination of redlining. The board will be holding a retreat in April to discuss other programs and events we'd like to prioritize, but we would also really like to hear from you. What programs or events would you like to see? Please email me. My email is on the slide. We'd also like to encourage you to write articles for our newsletter. You can send your articles in at any time. There's no deadline, and we will use them in an upcoming newsletter. The email is also on the slide, and these slides will be sent out to everyone, so you'll have all of the emails and the links we discussed today. Thanks, Lori.
Thanks, Shali. And again, once again, I'll reiterate, you will be sent the slides after the program, either today or tomorrow, so you'll have all of the information that you need. So Before we close out, I'd like to say a few words in memory of two devoted PDC members. That we did have full obituaries in our latest newsletter, but let's start with Jackman. Was a very, very dear friend of mine. And he is actually the person who invited me many years ago to become a member of the PDC. So you can see what happens once you become a member of the PDC. You get to be president at some point. He was so devoted to making the world a better place, both in his career and in his politics, and they certainly overlapped. May Jay's memory always be a blessing. I didn't know Dan Hoffman, but many, many PDC members spoke very highly of him, and he was a true progressive and very much committed to the Democratic Party. May Dan's memory also be a blessing. Let's have a moment of silence for both of these remarkable men. Well, I'd like to once again thank you all for attending this virtual annual meeting. Hopefully it will be our last virtual meeting. We certainly look forward to seeing all of you in person at future meetings. There's a lot to be said for meeting in person, hugging, shaking hands, and just talking. And thank you all for your continuing support. And we must all continue to focus on electing good Democrats locally in California and in the United States. And let's all hope for the best for what's happening in Ukraine. And again, let's work hard this year on getting Democrats elected. And thank you all. Goodbye for now.